Well, good afternoon, dear guests and panelists. As the Deputy Chairperson of YASET, I would like to welcome you to our webinar evaluating the first week of COP26. Sustainable development is one of the main themes of YASET. It's a guide for our work in improving the investment environment in Turkey itself. This perspective also bolsters our institutional vision in contributing to the sustainable and responsible growth development of our country as a leading NGO. Under YASET's Sustainable Development Platform, where we interact with our broader network in achieving green and responsible growth, we contribute to the government's policymaking process and private sector's green transformation. This with our global know-how and experience. We have been contributing to all global and local initiatives that aims to accelerate the green transformation. And I'm very happy to say that most YASET members have ambitious emission reduction targets that are in many cases exceeding the expectations of the public sector. We are not only transforming our companies, but also our ecosystems and supply chains, and moreover, producing, adopting, and providing technologies that are accelerating this change. So far, we supported all climate-related efforts in Turkey by taking active role in public-private deliberation mechanisms and sharing our expertise in public platforms open to wider audience. With this context, we closely follow the COP26 agenda, which we helped to develop and we profoundly believe is more than just a vision. COP26, which left its first week behind, continues to gather world leaders, politicians, business, and civil society from more than 190 countries with a single goal of accelerating the realization of targets established by the Paris Climate Agreement. While the steps to be taken for the world's future are discussed with such broad participation, we are striving to inform our broader network about the progress achieved in Glasgow with daily progress sessions and weekly evaluation meetings. Accordingly, today, we are very happy to have a nice panelist covering exactly these topics. Mrs. Louisa Vinton, the resident representative of United Nations Development Program, welcome. Mr. Mustafa Seçkin, YASET board member, Unilever vice president, and Mr. Selim Giray, YASET board member and GSK Turkey vice president and general manager with us. We are going to assess the first week of COP26 with a forward-looking perspectives, giving insight about the steps to be taken next, post COP26. We will also deep dive into good initiatives of international institutions and companies to support the climate agenda. I'm welcoming our guests one more time. And before I hand over to Serkan Bey as the moderator of this webinar, I end with the spirit of the words of the founder of the Turkish Republic, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who addressed and invited all people, but in particular the youth in Turkey and in the world, to vigilance and responsible actions for a better world. Serkan Bey, the word is yours.
Hüseyin Bey, thank you very much. We have a very busy and developing agenda today, and we are closely following the meetings and declarations on COP26, and we are trying to foresee the reflections of the outcomes on our efforts and future obligations. All in all, it's an enormous collective effort, and we are really hopeful that the event will contribute to strengthen the commitments set in the Paris Agreement, and more importantly, support future actions. As we reach the end of the first week, we would like to have an assessment about the progress achieved in COP26 so far. We appreciate all the efforts toward COP26. And to begin with, UNDP has been playing a major role in increasing awareness and pushing all parties for action as the champion of the green agenda. We really thank for that. And we still remember the historic UN summit on September 2015, adopting 2030 agenda for sustainable development, including 17 sustainable development goals. This year on COP26, in the UNDP event, UN Deputy Secretary General, Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, once again emphasized the the urgency of taking action by clearly defining the risks backed by the statements of the representatives around the globe. And today we have Ms. Louisa Winton, UNDP Turkey resident representative. It's a pleasure having you with us. And thank you for joining us in our first assessment meeting for COP26. And would you be so kind as to deliver us a broader picture about UNDP's perspective about what's going on and the highlights of the COP26 so far?
Yes, thanks very much, really. Thank you so much for the kind invitation and for the elegant introduction from our deputy chairman. And it's a great pleasure to be here. And as you know, the UN as a whole is the convening entity for the climate negotiations that we hope will deliver us the ambitious action that's needed really to save the planet. So it's really an honor to represent UNDP here. You know, and the task you've set today is I think, quite a demanding one to assess what's happened so far. And I think behind your question is really this idea of, are we moving forward, and are we moving forward with enough ambition to make a difference? And that, I think, is really still in the balance. So I think it's, you know, after a week, you can say, you know, is the cup half full, is it half empty? There's a lot of evidence for both propositions. And that's really where I wanted to start today, if I may.
Sure.
You know, UNDP's big contribution globally to awareness raising was our famous dinosaur, this Frankie the dinosaur, who, you know, delivered, you know, this film speech in the General Assembly with the message, "Don't choose extinction." And behind that message is the idea that by relying so heavily on fossil fuels, really the world is, in the words of our Secretary General Antonio Guterres, digging its own grave. And so a very stark message. I think one of the positives of this COP26 and Glasgow has been, we see, I think, that the message is getting through to a lot of countries, to a lot of people, and as you said, to young people, I think, whose future is in the balance. So I think there is a greater awareness now, and we do see that reflected, that there is no time to waste, you know, and really quite dramatic decisions need to be made now. So on the positive side, we do see a huge number of countries, including Turkey, you know, committing to a net zero future by mid-century. So that's a big positive. We see 90% of climate emissions and 90% of the world's GDP is now covered under some kind of net zero commitment. But then I think the issue also, the problem going forward, is that we don't see in the evidence, you know, when you dig into the ground, quite literally, you don't see that practice is following that commitment. So, and I think one of the other good things about this week is we've seen so many reports released that we do see that those who are keeping count, who are monitoring, for example, our sister agency, the United Nations Environment Program, that they've come out with a report that shows that while we need to be 46% down on climate emissions by 2030, in fact, we stand now to be 16% up. So we're really going the wrong way, even as we have this greater commitment to net zero. So that's something that we've seen, the Secretary General of the United Nations and other committed actors saying, look, please get real, please stop. You know, there was a criticism of sort of vague, nebulous net zero commitments that aren't followed up by action plans. So that's an area where we would like to see more, where we need to push. And I think private sector has a huge role to play, not just in transforming its own operations and businesses, but in pushing governments to really follow through from the commitment to the action plan. A couple of other positives, but I think all of them are these sort of half full, half empty balance sheets that we need to make. We've seen, you know, strong declarations on coal, you know, that our Secretary General has said, you know, this needs to be the last year of new coal production anywhere. And by 2030, we need to see OECD countries eliminating coal power entirely, and by 2040, everybody else. So that was kind of the bar set by the Secretary General. So we've seen movement by a lot of countries to say, okay, we will get rid of coal, whether it's Poland by 2049 or others. But the problem is that there's so many key actors missing from those commitments. So China, India, so that's 2/3 of the world's coal power, I think, and then the US stepping back for political reasons. And also, unfortunately, Turkey is also silent on the coal issue. So again, a positive to have a commitment by many, many, many countries, and out there the idea that coal needs to go, but then little follow through or not complete follow through. We see similar on deforestation. very strong commitments, 85% of the world's forest covered, more than 100 countries. But then if you look at the realization of the last promise on deforestation, it wasn't followed through. And in fact, there was more forest destroyed than there was preserved. And then on methane also, we see that if we work fast on methane, we can get some more time on carbon dioxide. Again, very strong commitments, a lot of countries involved, very high ambition, but then the need for follow through and the need for everybody else to join in. And then finally on finance. So we see movement towards this goal of 100 billion a year in climate finance from developed countries to developing countries. And we hear from John Kerry that it's likely that we won't reach that commitment in time, but soon enough. So that's very good. And then this brilliant, I think this Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, is a huge, almost all the financial institutions, I think 450 firms covering 130 trillion is big, $1 trillion in assets that will be, go climate neutral. But again, we need to see set the clear standards that are applicable across the world, see the action plans. The devil is in the details. And that, I would say, is we see a lot greater awareness, breaking down the climate problem into its elements, seeing where we need to have the commitments. But then we really need to see more concerted pressure on governments and on societies to follow through with the details. So for us, it's always, we need to look on the bright side, but here I think we need more if we're really to save people, property, assets from the climate disasters that we see are happening with greater frequency and are likely to get worse if we don't take more action soon.
Ms. Swindon, thank you very much. Especially it was in today's digest session of YASET where we inform our members about the daily progress in COP26. We made our own assessment about the call and commitments about the call, and what you reflected as the aggregate effect, whether it matters or not, whether it's a progress or not, that matters. And we believe that a continuous watchdog effort is necessary for all the efforts. And we also thank UNDP for this one, saying where we are and where we should go and pointing out the gap in between. And I can honestly say that everyone is looking after your keynote speaker. Even we received that for our new International Investment Summit. It was a big, but even youngsters are following that. So we also congratulate for this initiative and the way you put it into action. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Winton. And our next guest is Mr. Mustafa Seçkin, YASET board member and executive vice president of Unilever Turkey, Central Asia and Iran. Mustafa Bey, thank you again for leading the sustainable development platform of YASET and backing all our sustainability-related initiatives. We believe that we achieved good progress in the preparation process of the Green Deal Action Plan of Turkey and will continue to support the preparation of all climate-related strategies and policies in Turkey with your support. And for our audience, I would like to emphasize that as YASET, we are going to focusing on the financing aspect of the Green Deal or any climate-related actions and impact assessment studies that are necessary to clarify the actions to be taken, and also the technology dissemination aspect of it, like how can we use the technology best so that we can achieve the results that we are looking for as fast as possible. So, Mustafa Bey, welcome again. And before leaving the floor to you, I'm going to ask the first question for you to answer. Would you please share your views on COP26 as one of the main sponsors of the event and the Sustainable Development Champion Agenda Cooperator in the world? Have you evaluated the progress so far?
Thank you very much, Serkan Bey. First of all, it's my big pleasure to really work for YASET on the Green Deal, and happy to contribute and be in that mission. And also after Luisa's comments, have to add a few things, but let me try to see how Unilever see, and also personally how I see the recent days developments. First of all, I carry more hope than before. So the Paris Agreement 6 years ago, it was a full about an ambition. But now we talk and we see more action. In my view, this is the biggest summary of the COP26. Yes, maybe there are a few areas that we can say could be better, could be bolder and generous by the governments and other participants. But the achievement, we should be acknowledging that there is a big steps with plans, with numbers, with more commitment which is happening. And this year, one of the specialties for Unilever and for my company, we have been the principal partner of the UN COP26. So that was also a big honor for all Unilever employees and workers in the world. What can I add? To basically, definitely, we have seen a progress in many aspects. Such as there is a clear date about the net zero and also reduction of definitely the emissions. This is already set, but also carbon prices has been one of the discussion point, and Canada was pushing hard that one on the 60% of the biggest emission countries. Unfortunately, it wasn't too much welcomed by the US, as we know. But definitely carbon price, especially in developed market, will be a big force to cut the emission to a significant level. I think in the coming years that will continue. In these platforms, first of all, not all issues is solved in one meeting. It's a progress of meetings, as we learn. So in that sense, that will be a debate in the coming years for sure. The second, of course, point, one of the top 5 emitters, like countries like Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia, was not present in the meeting. So that was one of the general critics, which is hard to disagree. And also India, definitely a large contribution to the emission. And their pledge is 2070, which is 20 years later than the global commitment, which is still, in my view, okay, because if you look at the per capita emission of the India, it is still low at the 2 tons per capita versus the 15 of US or 12 of the Russia, for example, because there's a large population there. So Glasgow breakthroughs, in my view, was something that this meeting put the landmark. So the idea was to select some industries where the innovations and technology should play a different role and accelerate the changes. So what were these 5 industries? The power industry for sure, road transport, how we can really make zero emission vehicles, for example, that became much more clear. Steel industry, hydrogen, and agriculture. Especially agriculture is important for Turkey. As we know, we have a large population still there. And in that sense, any innovation, any development there will be good for the world, but also for Turkey for sure. Deforestation was a big topic. If you ask me, one area which we miserably failed from the Paris Agreement is the deforestation side. And this time there was a very good agreement that 85% of the world forest countries, they agreed to reverse the deforestation, not even flatten out, but reverse is an important word there. So that is important, of course. However, Argentina, Bolivia, and Venezuela, as one of the, again, large forest areas, has not been in this effort. As I said, I think that was being the slowest area that we have seen since Paris Agreement, but the current efforts gives a lot of hope that deforestation will be reversed as well. For Unilever also, deforestation is a very important point, which I may touch maybe in the rest of the panel. So coal, as Luisa said, is an important one. 190 countries committed to phase out the coal. But I think the challenge for the countries, as we hear a lot, the energy shortages as well. Yes, maybe phasing out coal, using the greener energies, but in the same time, we have to deal with the shortages or supply side of that one is a really super puzzle, big challenge for everyone, all industries, all governments, all of us. Green financing was another big topic. More than 160 banks, they had a commitment, they had a coalition to put pressure on high emission industries. That was very positive in my view. And global methane pledge, Turkey was not in that one, as we know. Russia Australia, China, India, big methane emitters were not in that one. However, it was a pledge which is important again. I believe in the coming years, the number of the cooperators in this coalition will increase. At some point, Turkey as well, definitely, I'm sure will consider that one. So overall, in my view, around all these key important topics, important achievements has been done. And that gives me personally a lot of hope to come to this 1.5 degrees big commitment, because it is still possible. It is still not too late. The only thing is a bit the speed, acceleration, innovation, use of the technology, digital is very, very important. But as I said, I think rather than ambition, seeing the action for me was very, very positive.
Thank you, sir. Especially the point you pointed out, the emission trading system. It is also a warm agenda item in YASE's SDB platform. And this is one of the issues that we are trying to clarify soon, so that the country is going to have a clear mechanism to trade carbon and better align with all the trading partners in the world, especially the EU. And while you are receiving hope, you are also giving hope by the implementation of Unilever. Would you please tell us some details about your commitments and the best practices that you're already been implementing?
Thank you. This is yes, from the very macro things. Maybe I should come down a bit more micro, and as an industry, as a company, where are we on that one? Because the efforts of Unilever started almost 15 years ago, and the commitment was to really grow our business while decreasing our footprint. Definitely was something which is a breakthrough at that time. So today, definitely where we are is exciting. Why? Because we announced a series of the commitments, and one of the most important one, net zero emission by year 2039, 11 years before the global commitment, which is something to note. How are we going to achieve that one? It has quite a scientific based targeting and plans over the years. Also to achieve zero emission operations by 2030 is our second commitment on that end. And deforestation free supply chain by 23. So in 2 years' time, across all Unilever, we will have a supply chain which allows deforestation free supply chain. So in that sense, this is something that we were working long years on that one, and we are almost very close to fulfill our commitment there. Also, we have been funding that one. We announced that we will invest another billion investment to dedicated climate and nature fund in the coming 5 years. So how we do these commitments? We do that through our categories, brands, and business, which is the core of our business, actually. In the home care category, for example, we have a clear vision plan, which is today have a big impact on the R&D side, especially. We are changing most of the ingredients that we have been using along the century to much more natural product. And that's a big effort which is going now. On the foods and refreshment side, I think there is also a very interesting development there with plant-based meat and nutrition. So we have a commitment that we will achieve 1 billion of our sales minimum through the plant-based product sales, which is also a good one. And also in beauty and personal care division, which is our third division, we have a definitely commitment to increase, regenerate 1.5 million hectares of land forest by 2030 again. So, and in every of them, there are series of the target setting and quite granular work which is happening. Maybe one other interesting thing that we had done very recently, we have a climate action plan, which we also presented to our stakeholders, to our investors. And we are the first company in the world which is a 99% backed, supported, voted by the investors. So this is something not only Unilever is doing, and in any conflict with the investors, which can happen sometimes in some companies, this is a plan which is backed by almost 100% of our investors. So this is something, in my view, important. And also what we do, especially the being partner in the COP26, we had a lot of demands from the governments, very open, very blunt demands, but also for the business also we offer a certain path how to cooperate, how to, in a way, play all this together. So I think it's important. So first of all, especially with the cooperation with the companies, we do that in 4 pillars. The first pillar is, of course, the ambition, the general ambition, setting science-based targets, and also on the emission, definitely calling our all ecosystem, the companies that we are working together to cooperate on these ambitions. The second step is action. So basically collaborate with partners to galvanize delivery on the climate targets. This is very important, with our investors, with our other stakeholders, because we know that we can't do these alone. So it is a very much stakeholder management. And the third level, which is the advocacy level, for example, the COP26 principal partnership was one of this one, how we can play the role at a bigger scale and being a force for the right places. And the last one is, of course, accountability, because otherwise it will be a bit missing. Definitely disclosing global commitments, like I explained. And our experience for the people maybe online listening, these commitments are extremely useful. And I'm not saying that we have done or we will be able to do all of them 100%. Our experience shows that in some areas we will exceed them earlier than the commitment. Maybe we will be a little bit short. Doesn't matter. I think the destination matters. The journey matters. And in some areas, definitely the companies will meet and exceed. And some areas may be short. It can happen, but still the direction and destination and accountability is very, very important. So in a nutshell, as Unilever, I think this is a topic that we take it very serious, and it is embedded in the heart of our daily operations and business. And my invitation here to all companies is that this is something that there is no prize for the first comer. This is something that either we all win or we all lose. So in that sense, cooperation, collaboration is the key word. And I am sure in Turkey, and Yaset plays a big role, and we play even more in the future, I am sure. Definitely time to collaboration. As I said, there is no prize for first comers, but either we will win altogether or unfortunately not win altogether.
And to win altogether, what do you think the first steps should be after we wake up on the 15th of November after the COP26 event? Where should the world and Turkey focus on to achieve solid progress towards the Paris Agreement?
Yeah, I think Turkey made in my view, a good achievement as well. So that was the first COP meeting that we have been attending after the Paris ratifying the Paris Agreement. I find it very important. So that is something. Even today, this kind of call that we do is another sign that the topic is being landed in many dimensions. Business is not in denial. Industries is not in denial, and everyone understands the need. Because we have seen and we lived through the consequences of what we speak, the risk in the last 5-6 years. I mean, the fire, bushfires that we had this year, other natural disasters like in Black Sea, for example, very recently. I think the list is long, and everyone understood that actions is needed, and now this is happening. So on the positive side, I must say that yes, I think we are on the move. As Turkey, definitely there are issues, challenges that we as business ready to cooperate, as NGOs, as Yaset, ready to cooperate all the time. And one of the things in my view needs a bit clarification is the Article 6. So basically, the national contribution things is a bit unclear for us, unclear for the COP20 UN as well. So basically, that has to be clarified. It will make the position of Turkey much clearer. And also, as you rightly said, in some of the coalition, we showed our ambition, but in some of them, we are still a bit shy. I'm sure there are reasons behind, but still, as Turkey, as government, as business, we will definitely work on that one. And this is a granular effort, so there is no silver bullet. So it's not one thing which will solve everything, but it will take 1,000 meetings, 1,000 hours of the discussions, coalitions, but we will get there hopefully. So I'm again optimistic, seeing the full side of the glass rather than the empty side from the Turkey point of view. We made big achievements, and I think from now on is a bit business and NGOs' role to help government to accelerate the plans, the ambition, and innovation. I want to emphasize this word because these challenges will not be solved with the old-fashioned thinking. We need really out-of-box things, innovation, courage. That kind of things will be important. As Unilever, definitely we want to be the principal partner of the government to contribute. And the day that we become the principal partner of the consumer as well, we will have a big smile, because all these efforts, if it is not appreciated, seen by the consumer at the end, the system will not work, because that is also something we are constantly thinking how we can make companies who make the effort and not making the effort. I think the consumer should be able to identify the effort. That's important. But coming to Turkey, I think, as I said, my last message is that good achievements. For the remaining challenge, we will work all together to make it happen.
Thank you very much, sir, for this inspiring perspective. And at this point, I would like to turn to Mr. Selim Giray, another board member of Yaset and Vice President and General Manager of GlaxoSmithKline Turkey, and also another sponsor of COP26. In addition to being a leading company in industry, due to market share, but also with the contribution to the Sustainable Development Agenda. What we are trying to do under all these efforts are for the welfare and health of the next generations. So having said that, would you please deliver us a perspective about the reflections of COP26 and the Sustainable Development Agenda in the healthcare sector and within the perspective of the healthcare sector? How does it reflect? How does it resonate?
Well, thank you very much for the invite, and also good afternoon to everyone, and thank you to the panelists for the very inspirational talk. Actually, I'll talk about why this issue is important in the healthcare space, and of course, GSK is a leading company in healthcare, and also talk about the ambition and certain actions we're taking. And I have a couple of slides actually to help me out. So if we can also put them on the screen, that would be very helpful. So thank you very much. Look, from a direct impact standpoint and stating the obvious, let's start with that. Healthcare is contributing roughly 5% in terms of the carbon footprint. So we are part of the problem, to be very blatant, and we need to work on that, obviously. And in that 5%, 12% is coming from the pharmaceutical space. So that's our part, and we'll fix it. And I'll talk about how we'll fix it. But I think in the healthcare space, there's a more important issue. Because if you think about all the healthcare companies, we have been working on improving people's lives for over a century, with all the innovation, with all the technology, with all the advancements, and now we're seeing it drain away. So there's a bigger part of the problem that we need to address as healthcare companies. Let me give you some specifics as to why this is important. For instance, air pollution. Air pollution is causing significant respiratory diseases. And to give you a figure on that, in 2018, that's the year of 3 years ago, the number is roughly 9 million people passing away due to issues related with pollution. Let's talk about heat waves. Heat waves are causing significant cardiovascular diseases. Let's talk about lack of wildlife protection. We see that animal to human infection is spreading, and we can see more instances of this pandemic. We can talk about climate change, we can talk about water pollution, and these are also creating rise in infection diseases, may it be animal-borne or may it be due to sanitation reasons. So why are we in this? We're in this for the obvious, but we're in this for above and beyond. We're in this for improving the health of people's lives. So that's our commitment. And actually, I'd like to also provide a quotation from Lancet I really admire. It says, and I quote, "Addressing climate change is the greatest public health opportunity of the century." So if we put a positive tune to it, if we're able to achieve this, this will also deliver significant benefits to health. So that is the context of why we're in this, actually. So let me come to the ambition. Can you please go to the next slide? As GSK, our commitment is very similar to big multinational companies. Our commitment is net zero impact on climate and a net positive impact on nature by 2030. And the lady you see on the screen is our CEO, Emma Walmsley, Dame Emma Walmsley. And to my colleague, Mr. Seçkin, what we can do, we can never ever do alone, because the vast majority of our footprint lies in scope 3. So we need to be working with partners, we need to be working with supply chain downstream, upstream, we need to be collaborating with agencies, we need to be working with governments, and in fact, we also need to be working with competition. So anyone and everyone within this space has to succeed. There is no other alternative. GSK's succession alone is impossible. So from COP26, as principal partners, we've also been talking to industry leaders, and on the screen, you can actually see the CEO of AstraZeneca, our CEO, head of NHS, to name a few, and we in fact even need royalties to help us out in this endeavor. So it's a mutual effort that will take everybody's coordination. That's the message I'm trying to provide here in this slide, in terms of the ambition. So let me move on to some actions, and then I'd be happy if you have any questions you may have. The next slide speaks to our actions, actually. To achieve our ambition.
If we can have the next slide, please.
Sure. To achieve our ambition, there are 4 critical pillars. Let me start with the obvious ones, starting from the right-hand side. Recyclable products. What does it mean for our industry? For instance, toothpaste. We need to minimize, in fact, eradicate plastic altogether and go for recyclable materials. That's the chunk of GSK's recyclable product issue. And that's what we're trying to address. We're talking about 1 billion tube transformation per year. That's per annum, what we're trying to go for. Those are the big elements in terms of what we mean by greener packaging. Greener energy, that means that by 2025, all our facilities across the world will be having renewable energy. So that's another strong commitment, and it's only 3-4 years from today. Specific to GSK, we're world leaders in respiratory medicines, and inhalers are causing 48% of our scope 2 issue. There is a propellant in our inhalers that ensures a proper delivery of our drug to the patient, but that is causing significant effects. And now, with science, with technology, we're trying to come up with a new propellant that will eradicate this issue, minimize this issue by 90%. Finally, in greener chemicals, looking at our processes end to end. That means starting from discovery to distribution and logistics. Wherever possible, we're looking at technology, we're looking at minimizing of raw materials, we're looking at ways to enhance enzymes as a way of ensuring that lesser product is used in production. And in fact, let me give you some example on antibiotics. Antibiotics uses wheat as one of the raw materials. Now we're shying away from wheat altogether, and we're partnering with bread factories and buying their crumbs and unused material, so that somebody's scope 2 is getting better and somebody else's scope 3 is getting better. So I think that's the kind of collaborative spirit we need to embrace in terms of meeting our ambition. And my final note is that reaching our goals of 2030 collaboration, honestly, in our company's point of view, needs full transparency, to Mr. Seckin's point again. It needs action, not a lot of words, and it needs accountability. We need to provide trust to the public to say, this is where we faltered, this is where we have made progress, and it needs to be visible to all. And this also needs to be ensured by a strong spirit of collaboration. So that's us as an industry and GSK in a nutshell. Thank you.
Selim Bey, thank you very much. And for the audience and for all our members and stakeholders, after this event, we are going to continue highlighting the best practices of YESED members, the best practice in the industry examples, so that anyone can learn and implement these best practices, and also have an idea about the process of creating those best practices. So they are not just ideas, they are changes in operating models. Even the financing, making it as a project and implementing is a big issue, especially with big companies at this size. There are many things to learn, and following the COP26, we are going to make it more visible for all our stakeholder base. And there's one point, Selim Bey, I would like to highlight. In your speech, you mentioned about partnering with all other industries and talked about your supply chain. Whenever big companies like YESED members are making changes and transformations, it is directly affecting their supply chain, sister industries, and even policymakers that they are in touch with. How would you elaborate on your impact during your studies on this ecosystem of yours?
Well, actually, as we push for progress as GSK, that will mean that our supply chain partners, regulatory agencies, governmental agencies will have to also revamp their game, because this is a one-way street. You can't turn back. You have to just move forward. And if you don't move forward, you're out of business. So I think working with GSK, companies will also, and of course it's a two-dimensional aspect. We will learn from our supply chain partners, they will learn from us, and thereby will really enhance the way we do business. That will create many opportunities for economy, including exports, including enlarging of business diversifications. So it's a positive element, actually. It might seem like a big chunk to swallow, but this is inevitable. So we need to embrace it. We need to work together on it, and it will make us all better at the end of it. That's how we perceive it.
Okay, thank you very much. And before we conclude, I would like to ask one last question to Ms. Winton. You are working hand in hand with all the policymakers and all the stakeholders that have a say in this green agenda. And how do you perceive the contribution of Turkey and approaches that we presented in the last quarter of this year? And what are your highlights? What are your key points that UNDP Turkey is going to focus on in the short term and the midterm? If you can be so kind to inform us about these issues, then our wider audience will have an idea about what you are trying to do.
Thanks really so much. And really I have to say it's so inspiring to hear the specific company examples presented here, because I mean, for me, this year, to answer your question about Turkey, this is really one of the biggest contributions that Turkey can make, is through the creativity of local industry, showing the way, showing the examples, and really setting the scene. And I think, UNDP is aiming, as I said, the challenge we see is bridging the gap between the stated ambition and the delivery.
We just have a slight glitch in the system, but Ms. Winton is coming back. So while waiting for Ms. Winton to come back, maybe a question for you, Selim Bey, as we channel the question to Mustafa Bey. What do you think the first thing that we need to focus on after COP26? What do you think the biggest dilemma or biggest issue that we need to address as a country or as a global community that is trying to implement this green agenda?
Well, first, I think sense of urgency with public authorities, one piece, but also education of public. I don't know how educated people are, what the sense of urgency with the consumers are. So maybe awareness on all aspects, education, training, what emissions mean, might be some, ways to start. We need to be also a facilitator of those, awareness items, if you will.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Winton, we took the opportunity to have the last say of Selim Bey when you're absent. Please continue, man.
Thanks. I apologize, and I'll be fast in case I get cut off again. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, okay, great. No, a couple things I wanted to say, drawing on the remarks of the two gentlemen and the excellent examples presented, is that UNDP wants to help to show that this is an economic opportunity. It's not a cost. It's not to the detriment of business, it's to the advantage. And if there's enough innovation, enough creative spirit, and enough sharing of experience, then through things like green jobs, showing the way to industries that look to be doomed, that there is a way forward. And then the second point would be, looking at nature as something that we're part of and seeking to make nature part of our solutions. And I think, there's been so much focus on climate. The pandemic has brought us back to nature. And the idea that there are ecosystem services, that they do provide a contribution to business, among other things, that we can rely on nature to help us deliver these results. And then finally, I think on the finance, UNDP has been working here in Turkey, and this is a big area, I think, where Turkey can set an example, is through this, what we're calling impact investment of showing that this is a big area for finance and for growth, and we have these investor maps that we can encourage people to see investments that are aimed at achieving the Sustainable Development Goals as really a financial way forward. So I think those things, finance, nature, and economic opportunity, are key to Turkey's contribution, but also the areas where UNDP would like to really provide hands-on solutions and help move things forward. So thanks very much, and apologies for dropping out.
No problem at all. Thank you very much. We also had a chance to listen to your comments on the impact investment ecosystem and how we can develop it in Turkey. We also appreciate for UNDP's support on this domain, which is a main area that YESED is institutionally supporting the development of. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure having you all. We are going to be following COP26, and we are going to have daily events and final closing event, especially for talking about the next steps after COP26. As you said, we have a solid agenda and target for contributing to this agenda, and with the lead of, especially with Mr. Mustafa Seçkin, we are achieving solid progress on this field. And our aim is to make Turkey better and the world better by our global partners and global institutions. So thank you very much for your participation. We are looking for better improvements and better news from COP26 from the floor, and we'll continue to inform you. Stay healthy, stay safe.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Bye-bye.